Okay, thanks everyone for joining. I've got today with me my sister-in-law's sister, Ify. She's a hi Ify. So she's a medical doctor in New York, and I thought it would be good to get her on to give us a different perspective of what it's like to, basically having to be on the front line and how she's maintaining her mental fitness. So I recently moved over from London, and I've got to meet Ify at Thanksgiving, my first Thanksgiving day. Also got to spend Christmas with you. So we got to spend time in happier times, but now things are a little bit more, I don't know, kind of upside down. So thanks for coming on, Ify, and today's your day off, so I really appreciate you coming on here to basically share your thoughts with us. The first question I want to ask is, how are you coping with your mental fitness? And I realize I haven't been defining what mental fitness is. So for me, mental fitness is like, how are you using your mental skills, so your mindset, to approach this? The second part is mindfulness. How are you giving yourself space from your thoughts so that you can engage with your thoughts the way you would like? And how are you maintaining your emotional stability?
So I think that, you know, for the different parts of that question, a big part of it, I think, comes from sort of stepping away from social media. I think that mental fitness is different for different people. And for me, I think when you are amongst, like when you watch all the news and you hear a lot of the different political agendas and the fear and what people are saying, and then the conspiracy theories, like a lot of it can add unneeded stress to an already stressful life for me. So I think that like in terms of strategies for maintaining my mental fitness, a lot of that comes from stepping away from sort of the clamoring that's going on, like that I see throughout like social media and like the news and all of that. Um, if uh, if I were to like take it all and just come home, a lot of my relaxation, you know, steps, I think, take a lot or like contribute a lot to me staying mentally fit, if I were to put it that way.
Okay. No, I totally agree with you. I think the news is really having an impact on us, because at the moment there's no filter on what's going on. I think when Ezzy was on, she calls it the good, the bad, the ugly. Everything just gets
Yeah,
played on there. Uh,
yeah,
I actually stopped watching the news. I only put things on that are going to lift my energy. So if it doesn't
yeah,
lift my energy,
exactly.
yeah, don't watch it.
It's really it makes an impact.
Yeah,
And in the beginning, when this was sort of ramping up, I was watching the news like every night with just, always like on my phone, keeping up with all of the updates and the death toll and,
yeah,
the the counting of all of the cases. They were doing updates very frequently within our hospital, and like that's important for me. But I think just the fear part really makes an impact, and I was very fearful in the beginning, but things are a little bit different now.
yeah. I remember. I mean, even CNN. I remember when they had on repeat showing bodies in this old people's home, and I was like, why would you do that? Like,
Yeah,
how is that going to help anybody seeing that again and again? So yeah, I think definitely having a filter on how much news you watch and what type of
yeah,
news you watch.
exactly.
So, I know, like the New York governor, quite enjoyed watching him when he comes to give his.
Yeah,
He gives you proper information, and he speaks with a human touch that actually, okay, makes you feel that we're going to get through this.
he's about the only one that I would watch. Yeah,
Yeah,
because he gives accurate information and speaks with like like he has a plan.
Yeah.
And so all of those are more comforting than just sort of spouting out, sort of the same old thing.
Yeah.
And I think people have respected him and really, like he's really stepped up as a leader. And so those are comforting things to be able to watch.
I totally agree with you on that one. Okay, so the other question I was going to ask you is, how do you, because you mentioned relaxation steps, so it's like, how do you prepare for your shifts, and also what steps do you take to recover from them?
So for me, in terms of preparing, not too much has necessarily changed in how I prepare for work. I try to sleep a lot more than like I used to a couple years ago, and that plays a really big role. And then, in the morning, same daily routine. Caffeine plays a large role in preparing, but I think the more it's more for me about like what I do when I come home after work, and that is much more like ritualistic for me in a way. Definitely like full showering, preparing food, just like a lot of aromatherapy, and sometimes I'll like bake or something and really take some time to just like be with myself and stuff. If it were different, I think there'd be a lot more like social engagements, being with friends. But now and again, we'll like take socially distancing appropriate walks or things of that nature. But nowadays, if I'm just coming home by myself and trying to like take those steps, definitely, candles and like preparing dinner. I love to cook, so those are big things for me.
Okay. Yeah, I like the social distancing walking. I think everybody's got used to that now, where people
Yeah,
walking into the middle of the road, but they're still waving at you and saying hi.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. People are definitely like craving that social, contact, but gotta follow the rules. So.
yeah, but I mean, how are you finding that hard, that loss of human contact? Because I know your sister Ezzy, she sent a video saying that if this doesn't stop soon, and she doesn't see people, she's gonna. Basically, the video was of somebody going crazy, and I think the human contact is starting to affect.
Yeah, like human beings aren't meant to be in isolation, but I'm definitely a bit less of an extrovert than she is. So I don't, and plus, at work, I see a lot of my colleagues who I spend most of my time with anyway. I see them every day. And there's actually been a lot more sense of community amongst, the different medical personnel, and sort of an attitude of we're all in this together. And you're like meeting new people who are traveling nurses, traveling respiratory therapists. Like you're meeting new people every day, and people are being deployed to different areas of the hospital, so you're meeting those new people. So there's definitely a greater sense of um, like family and friends that I actually like didn't have before. So in that sense, I'm getting more social, contact. And so that's been another bright side to this that we all try to look for. So yeah, I think there's two ways to look at it, but for me, I'm still seeing people, and that is
So there's a
helpful.
greater sense of connection between all the medical staff because they're really having to pull together now.
Yeah,
So you've almost all become like family now.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's actually the point that you mentioned about how extrovert versus introvert, and I think we all definitely need human contact. But I think as I've been having Zoom calls with friends, I noticed the friends that are extroverts, this is having a huge
Oh, oh
impact on them.
yeah.
Because even
This is
when they have the Zoom
absolute
call,
torture
yeah,
for
they
them.
miss that. Yeah, if they because they're not seeing people, it's really impacted them a lot more.
Yeah, because extroverts, they draw their energy from other people. Like
Yeah,
that's what gives them their go. So, for people like Ezzy or my mom, like this is really tough for them because they
yeah.
love social interaction.
Well, let's hope that the rules are going to be relaxed a little bit so that we can start going to see people, the extroverts, actually before before it becomes too much for them.
Yeah, yeah. Soon, I hope. Sometime, May, June.
Yeah. I think in the UK, the May 7th, they're going to announce a date or whether they're going to relax it. I'm not sure here in the US, but I think like people, especially with the weather getting good where we are in Maryland, I think people are going to start getting a bit itchy now and start coming out.
Yeah, I already am seeing it, outside, but I hope I, I know Cuomo and like the governor of California, they all have their multi-step, multi-phased plans.
Yeah.
So I think that will help, and I think they're going to release those soon.
Okay. Okay. So a question I wanted to ask you as well was, so a friend raised this to me about how doctors, you guys are almost operating in a wartime zone. And in wartime zone, you kind of have to make a lot of tough decisions in like who you're going to treat or where to basically put resources. And I wanted to just if you could shed some light on how do you deal with the decisions that you've been having to make, especially in New York where there's been a high spike in the coronavirus.
Well, we were running short on a lot of resources, not ventilators, per se, but when all of these patients were coming in, I was in the ED for a short period of time. And actually, as a neurologist, we don't really rotate through the ED. So that was I was like deployed there. It was a new experience for me. And that really seemed like a war zone. Like it was people in the hallways, you're running around trying to get oxygen tanks for these patients, and then we're running out of oxygen tanks, we're running out of like the masks to give them the oxygen, the machines to check their oxygen saturation, and ED is turning into an ICU, and so you're now trying to decide not necessarily like who's getting what, but you have to really be hyper aware of all of the patients all of the time in a way that you never really had to be before. Um, but when I got out of the ED and I was put back in the neuro ICU, which turned into a COVID ICU, we did run into the situation where dialysis became a necessity for these patients because you get so sick and your lungs get so sick, your kidneys are affected subsequently, and they required like a temporary dialysis. But we were running out of the dialysis machines, and so now it was like, oh, this person has to get dialysis every other day when we in a normal world, like that would never be the case.
Yeah.
Um, so it is something that we just really had to try to balance, um, so that we could keep everyone going, in the most safe manner possible. And that was really shocking to experience that. It's gotten to the point, and it could have gotten a lot worse, I know. So um, and we were one of the luckier hospitals, but the fact that it had gotten to that point where we are really trying to conserve resources, and even now dialysis is still something that is kind of like hard to obtain. And yeah, it was just a very difficult sort of challenge to come to terms with. We did get through it. You know, the people who ended up needing it did get it, but it was a difficult decision-making time period for all of us who had to sort of meet out those limited resources.
Yeah. So yeah, because when you say ED, that means the emergency.
Yeah, the emergency department. Yeah.
And you've never worked. This was your first time just being thrown in at the deep end in that.
Yeah, it was at the peak, I think, sort of when the cases were really coming in.
Yeah.
And we were just sort of like ramping up. Like we had prepared for the situation, and now we were getting to the point where we needed all of the things that we had been preparing for. We turned our operating rooms into ICUs. We turned everything that could even resemble like a room into an ICU. And so
sounds like proper war zone.
Yeah, it was
everything.
It was very intense. I was happy to help, but it was a lot.
So I was going, yeah, because someone I was talking with who is based in Belgium, they said that how the doctors were coping was because you have to make a lot of tough decisions on who do you treat, who do you not treat. So they were doing something where two doctors would have to make the decision so that it wasn't all on one person's head.
Yeah, that's the PC, yeah. But I don't think it ever got to the point where there were some cases where there was like ethics involved, and you start to talk with the families, because you have like extremely elderly patients who it's an extremely painful process to go through some of the treatment and very invasive things that are involved in the treatment of the subsequent complications of coronavirus. And thinking about like what is like what they would have wanted during that time period, you know, for your 89-year-old grandmother or grandfather, like would they really have wanted to be put through you know, some of our invasive like treatment options? We don't know. It's conversations that we have with families and sometimes with ethics to make those really difficult decisions. And it was a lot of those conversations because a lot of the patients when I was in the ED, it was like 60% of our patients were above 80 years old. So, you know, like what would they have wanted at this point in their life? You know, would they have wanted to, like, if they were to have multi-system organ failure, would they want to be hooked up to a breathing machine for the rest of their life? And would they want to have dialysis for the rest of their life because of the damage to their kidneys and, you know, be fed through a feeding tube? Or it's very difficult because no one wants to imagine their loved one in that situation and they were fine just a few days ago and things turn over so quickly. It is very difficult medical decision making and things that we have to do with the family. But you know, we hope for the best, but we prepare for the worst.
So I'm hoping things have gotten a bit better now from those periods. Is it starting to calm down now?
Yeah, things have calmed down a lot. Shortly after I was in the ED, maybe like 2 weeks after that, they started seeing like a dramatic slowdown in the number of cases.
Yeah.
New Yorkers really came through and stayed home. Like I think everyone was very surprised at how well we, came together on that front, and people just stayed home, and that was what we needed. So luckily, things started to slow down. I'm in the ICU frequently, and we still have cases from the very beginning. People are in the hospital for a very long time when they get sick with this, traditionally. Um, and so we haven't seen so much of a turnover as we were seeing before.
I mean, the point that you mentioned about New Yorkers doing the social distancing and staying home, I really hope everyone can take a leaf from New York's book and actually realize that to get on top of this, we really have to do that staying at home and doing the social distancing, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize how bad or serious it can get, because everyone, when they start talking about the economy, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
get the economy.
Yeah, that's why, like watching the news and watching people talk about like how this isn't real and they're protesting in the streets. It is mind-boggling to someone like me who's like seeing all of this firsthand, which is why I said that like watching the news is just, I cut a lot of it out unless, I really need to.
Yeah.
Um, but it is remarkable, like when people listen, and understand the impact of like the seriousness of this and the consequences, and stay at home, and then we see the result of that where cases are downtrending, and we're not stressed to our breaking point. It is something I'm extremely grateful for as a medical doctor, because I know how bad things could have gotten, because we were really pushing the limit to that point.
I'm glad to hear it's slowing down, and I really hope that the New York governor keeps giving these talks and people will start getting on board with what we need to do to basically not take us to that breaking point again.
Yeah.
The question I wanted to ask was, because this sounded like it was a really stressful period, and I just wondered if you can reflect back and think, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you think really helped you in your stress management?
Let's see. So I think, in terms of stress, I think that for me, what I learned early on, I guess, in my medical school and training, is that sleep is so critical. A lot of us are very driven. We have like the tendencies to just keep pushing ourselves and pushing and pushing, pushing, until like you just collapse. But uh, how much you sleep, I think, is such a critical part of your health. Um, I think in America, the work ethic is extremely strong, and we tend to push ourselves a lot uh, for our work or whatever our goals are, and sleep can fall to the wayside. So I will come home, do what I need to do, and then just sleep, because I'm working 13-hour shifts, 12 to 13 hours. So it doesn't leave a lot for me to do a ton of activities, but I'll always get my sleep.
Right.
um, that's, I think, a big one. Um, Other things, talking with my loved ones, that is really big for me, and keeping in touch with them, and like seeing my nephews through Zoom or video chats, um, and like having gospel up here. My fiance, um,
Yeah.
having him here has been a huge, has played a big role, because like being able to communicate with your loved ones is so important. I see in the hospital now, like, because we can't have family visitors, uh, like the fact that they can't come see their sick loved one, just really breaks your heart because they're calling every day, you know, like they want to know. We do what we can with like video chats, like in the hospital, but it just makes you understand the value of family all the more, and being able to talk with them and check in with them, checking in with my parents, things like that. And then I think the third solace I get is through things that I enjoy, like cooking and baking. I'll like bake for my co-residents a lot. Um, and yeah, online shopping, you know. I've been through Amazon quite a few times, so that's helping too.
These are all really, yeah, I think the talking to loved ones, and also, as you mentioned, having gospel there, who's just moved over. I kind of find like not having to go through this without any human contact would have been like some of my friends who their boyfriends or girlfriends were stranded somewhere else. It's really
Yeah,
a toll. So
yeah,
as
yeah,
much as maybe I don't appreciate my wife sometimes, I definitely appreciate having her through this.
yeah,
Uh, and also having our little boy, he's really just helped us, yeah, not have the real bad impact that could have been happening from this. So,
definitely.
but I love the point you mentioned about sleep, because that's one thing I found since I've just moved from the UK and over here. You guys, your work ethic is crazy. People pulling all nighters is kind of like it's like a normal thing here. Oh, I've got to go to 4 or 5 o'clock to get that work done, and it just baffles me because I think like the basketball player LeBron James, he actually pointed out how if you don't sleep, your body just cannot function at that level. Doesn't matter how much coffee you drink, sooner or later you're going to hit a wall. And I just love the fact that yeah, you've highlighted that when you have to perform in these levels going into work, you need to recover and
Yeah,
sleep, good quality sleep, not just
exactly.
twitching and watching TV and then waking up every 2 hours. Yeah, is important.
Good sleep hygiene, and that's important. Meaning, you know, don't watch a lot of TV right before, or like scrolling through your phone in bed, things like that. Um, it's important. It took me a while to recognize that, like all through college, and like part of med school. Actually, like before I met gospel, like I just didn't prioritize it, and I'm only hurting myself because I don't think as well, I don't study as well, I'm not retaining information as well if I'm not well rested.
Yeah.
Um, and he actually was the one to really emphasize that for me. And so after I started prioritizing that, things really changed. So
Yeah, I like what you said about sleep hygiene, where you can't be looking at your phone just before you go to bed, or if you watch a Netflix series that's quite intense before you go to bed, you find it. Yeah,
yeah, it's replaying in your head.
watching Game of Thrones or Homeland before you go to bed is not a good idea because your mind will just keep
Yeah,
going through the.
yeah,
So,
I'll have terrible dreams. I always dream about stuff that I'm just like watching, you know,
yeah.
recently.
The last question I wanted to touch on was so we were actually all looking forward to your wedding, which was about to happen in July. Is it July?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
July.
And what's that been like, having to basically postpone the wedding and the impact on you?
I think that I was definitely um, what's the word? I guess doubtful, or I was stubborn about the idea that I wouldn't be able to have the wedding in July back in early March. It's like, oh, for sure, you know, April, May, June, July, that's like 4 months. Things should have calmed down. Things will be back to normal somewhat. That was before things really got crazy. But I was not willing to sort of confront like what the reality was starting to become for everyone. And it started with them telling us as residents, like, oh, you can't travel to other countries. Like, we're just, like, whatever trip you had planned in the next couple of weeks back in late February, early March, like, cancel it. Like, you can't go. And there was someone who literally had a wedding in like the following 2 weeks or something. And her honeymoon was like in Bali or something, like some beautiful trip that she had spent thousands of dollars planning for. And just like seeing the change in her, and seeing how she ended up having to like cancel her wedding like completely, uh, really started to put things in perspective for me. I know someone who had a wedding in Italy, planned, ready to go, all in May, completely canceled, you know. And so for me, if I'm able to sort of push it and have everyone there that I want to be there, then I'd rather have that than, you know, something that's people just don't come to, or, you know, people are afraid, or people are sick, or I'm sick, God forbid. And so it's not worth it in the end, especially if you can get your vendors to cooperate with you. And all of them have been very understanding, which I'm thankful for. But you know, it's not as bad as it could have been. I think I didn't have to cancel it completely, and I'm not losing any money, just a little bit of time, which in the grand scheme of things, you know,
It's not that bad.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear that the vendors are being flexible, because I think that's a worrying thing of having to cancel. I'm just thinking back to our wedding and having to cancel and losing all that money. That probably make me cry, to be fair.
It's devastating to have to, like, after you've done all the planning, you've invested so much into it, especially like family struggles and conflicts. Like, it's a goal that you have, and then to have it all sort of undermined it messes with your head. But you have to stay positive, and I think between the two of us, like, we've been able to do that. And our family has been really supportive of everything. You know, my dad is like, whatever you need to do, we're there. My mom's like, as long as it's not on Easter, don't plan it on Easter, then we're good, you know.
Yeah, I know. Like, planning Nigerian weddings it takes a lot. It's almost like planning a political peace summit, because there's so much that you have to get happy, and then finally lining everybody up, and then having
Yeah,
to change that. It's like, oh, yeah.
it's
I love
like tactical planning.
the point you made was how you kind of, because I think at the beginning when we first started this, everyone kept thinking, oh, we'll be out of it in 6 weeks, oh, we'll be out of it in 2 months, and then having to make that mental shift to accept the realities that, yeah, we don't know how long this is going to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think even for us, we'd planned not the same as a wedding, but we'd planned to go on a cruise. And my wife EJ was still thinking that, yeah, we're still going to go to this, and I was trying to tell her that there's no way that thousands of people are going to be allowed to go on the boat, and I don't think the country is going to let you dock.
Yeah. Yeah. Cruises in general, you might want to.
Yeah, I think that they may not come back into fashion after this for a
Yeah.
little while. It just takes one person to be sick, and then wow, you're stranded at sea. Nobody's more than you.
Yeah, no cruises for the foreseeable future. Doctor's orders.
I'll take that. But have you had that, have you had some relief now, not having the wedding thing, not having to think about it, like knowing that okay, I can put that away?
The thing is that we had been engaged for over a year and a half. So it had been enough time to plan things relatively without stress. So things weren't so compacted. So we were actually like very ready for July. It was like more than enough time for us to work out all of the planning. Um, so it wasn't something that like, oh, we're not ready for this. Like, oh, we need more time.
Yeah.
Now this is like an excess of time. We were definitely ready for July, but you know, it is what it is. Luckily, my schedule tends to be extremely inflexible because of the way we plan things for residency. But I was able to do this early enough that I could get the vacation that I wanted early on, to reorganize everything, and so that was good. But you know, it is what it is, I guess.
Well, on the positive side, you've got gospel there with you now, so it's at least you have that, and then next year will be there. It's just been postponed, I think, is there.
Yes, yes.
I think I remember when I saw you last time, you were practicing the dance moves for the grooms.
Yes, that is still on the agenda, and
Okay.
everyone.
Have you shared it with them yet? How?
No, 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 no. I haven't because, like I was initially, but um, I think we will redo the video, me and my sister, and then we'll send out like another one, um, and we'll give them. I don't want to give them too much time because then they will see it and then they'll like completely blow it off. There needs to be some pressure, some
Right.
pressure there, and then they will learn the dance. It'll be great. It was a great dance, right?
It was a great dance. I was just a bit worried that there was a lot of steps in it, and I'm not sure the guys would have had practiced it in synchrony as well as you and Imma were doing it.
Yeah, I can dream, right? A bride can
Keep
dream.
dreaming, keep dreaming. With dreams, it will happen. It will become a reality.
If gospel can learn it, then they can all learn it.
I totally agree. Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Ify, because this is your day off, for taking this time to come and talk with us.
No problem.
I'm going to end on just, if there's one thing that you'd like to share with the world, what would that be for their mental fitness?
Oh, definitely, like I said before, sleeping. I'm sure people are getting a lot of that in, but I think also physical fitness and um, not letting that be put to the wayside
Yeah.
is also important. Like me and gospel have gotten more into different like stretching exercises and sort of like a little bit of yoga. I try to still practice taekwondo, which I used to do very regularly when I could go to the studio. But doing that at home also has been good. Going out for walks,
Yeah.
just like staying active. I think is really important, and
I totally agree with you. I think, especially going out at least once every day, I think for me is important to just get some fresh air, do some
yeah,
sort of activity.
you got to, or else like
Just,
cabin fever gets really real really fast.
you suffer from cabin fever too? I thought it was just me. Yeah.
No, everyone will suffer eventually, and you'll be itching to go outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm going to end it there, and I hope you have a good day.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.